Good evening, dear listeners. As you settle into your comfortable space, I invite you to embrace the gentle rhythm of your breathing, allowing the cares of the day to drift away like leaves floating on a serene river. Tonight, we embark on a journey through time, exploring a seemingly mundane yet fascinating aspect of the ancient world: the evolution of Roman road milestone placement regulations. In our fast-paced lives, it's easy to overlook the small details that shaped civilizations. Yet, within these details lie stories of ingenuity, organization, and the pursuit of efficiency. So, as we prepare to delve into the history of Roman road milestones, allow the soft cadence of my voice to cradle you into a state of relaxation, where the complexities of the past can be transformed into a soothing lullaby for the mind. As we meander through the annals of history, we'll uncover how the Romans, known for their remarkable engineering feats, meticulously crafted a system for marking distances along their expansive road network. From the bustling streets of Rome to the farthest reaches of their empire, these milestones served not only as practical markers for travelers but also as symbols of Roman authority and order. We'll begin our exploration with the origins of these milestones, tracing their roots back to the early days of Roman road construction. As we explore the motivations behind their placement, you'll find that even the most mundane regulations were born from a desire for clarity and communication. We'll then gently transition into the evolution of these regulations over the centuries, revealing how they adapted to the changing needs of society, commerce, and governance. As we drift further into our narrative, we'll touch upon the materials and designs that adorned these milestones, painting a picture of the artistry that accompanied their practical purpose. Imagine, if you will, the soft glow of lantern light illuminating ancient stones, each one whispering tales of travelers who relied on their guidance. In the latter part of our journey, we will reflect on the legacy of these milestones and how their influence can still be seen in modern infrastructure. As we connect the past to the present, we'll find comfort in the idea that even the simplest elements of history have lessons to teach us about organization, communication, and the pursuit of progress. So, dear listeners, as you nestle deeper into your blankets and close your eyes, allow the rhythm of this narrative to wash over you. Let the weight of the world melt away as we begin our soothing exploration of the boring evolution of Roman road milestone placement regulations. Together, we will find tranquility in the cadence of history, allowing the stories of the past to lull you into a peaceful slumber. Now, let us embark on this serene voyage through time, where we will uncover the quiet yet profound impact of these ancient regulations, one gentle word at a time. The evolution of Roman road milestone placement regulations presents a compelling study of administrative development and infrastructural standardization from antiquity. This historical account delineates the procedural advancements and architectural nuances surrounding the establishment and regulation of milestones within the expansive Roman road network from its nascent stages in the early Republic through to the late Imperial period. The earliest known reference to milestones in Roman history can be traced to circa 312 BCE, during the construction of the Via Appia, one of the first long-distance roads built in Rome. This road, commissioned by the censor Appius Claudius Caecus, was a significant engineering endeavor that facilitated military movements and trade between Rome and the southern regions of Italy. The placement of milestones, or miliaria, along this thoroughfare served a dual purpose: to mark distances and to assert the authority of the Roman state over the territories through which the road traversed. By 200 BCE, the practice of placing milestones had become more codified, as evidenced by the writings of the Roman historian Livy, who noted that milestones were often inscribed with the name of the reigning consul, thereby creating a temporal linkage to the political climate of the era. The inscriptions typically included the distance to the nearest city, expressed in Roman miles, which corresponded to approximately 1,478 meters. This system not only facilitated navigation but also reinforced the political narrative of Roman expansion. As the Republic transitioned into the imperial phase, the proliferation of road construction led to the establishment of more stringent administrative protocols concerning milestone placement. By 20 CE, the Emperor Augustus, recognizing the need for consistency and order in the empire's extensive road network, instituted regulations that specified the uniformity of milestone design. These regulations mandated that milestones be constructed from durable materials, such as limestone or marble, which were to be quarried from local sources to minimize transportation costs. The average height of these milestones was standardized at approximately 1.5 meters, with a base width of 0.5 meters, allowing for both visibility and stability. The architectural detailing of milestones during this period underwent a notable transformation. Early milestones were often rudimentary, featuring simple inscriptions. However, by the reign of Augustus, milestones began to include decorative elements such as relief carvings and symbols representing the legions responsible for the road's maintenance. This not only enhanced the aesthetic appeal of the milestones but also served as a form of propaganda, reinforcing the military might and administrative efficiency of the empire. In terms of administrative procedures, the placement of milestones was overseen by local magistrates, who were responsible for surveying the roads within their jurisdiction. The magistrates were required to submit reports to the central government detailing the condition of the roads and the placement of milestones. This practice ensured that milestones were strategically positioned at intervals of 1 Roman mile, thereby providing a consistent measure of distance for travelers. The daily routines of these local magistrates and their assistants were characterized by a meticulous approach to road maintenance and milestone placement. Each morning, they would convene to review the previous day's work and to plan for current tasks. The process typically involved a series of measurements using ropes and wooden stakes to demarcate the exact locations for milestone installation. Once the sites were determined, laborers would be dispatched to excavate the ground and prepare the foundations for the milestones, ensuring that they were both level and securely anchored. By the time of Emperor Hadrian in the early 2nd century CE, the regulations surrounding milestone placement had reached a level of sophistication that reflected the empire's commitment to infrastructural integrity. Hadrian's reign saw the introduction of further refinements, including the establishment of a system for the periodic inspection of milestones. Inspectors, known as curators viarum, were appointed to ensure that milestones remained intact and legible, and they were tasked with overseeing repairs or replacements as necessary. This additional layer of oversight was indicative of the Roman approach to governance, which prioritized systematic regulation in all aspects of public life, including transportation. The inscriptions on milestones during Hadrian's reign became increasingly elaborate, often celebrating the achievements of the emperor or commemorating significant events, such as military victories or public works projects. The milestones, therefore, served not only as markers of distance but also as tools for the dissemination of imperial ideology. The inscription of milestones became a ritualistic activity, often involving a public ceremony that brought together local officials, citizens, and soldiers, thereby fostering a sense of communal identity and loyalty to the emperor. As the empire expanded further into regions such as Gaul and Britannia, the need for consistent milestone regulations became even more pronounced. The Roman provincial governors were tasked with ensuring that the milestones along newly constructed roads adhered to the established standards. This required a coordinated effort among engineers, laborers, and local officials, who had to navigate the complexities of regional dialects, customs, and available resources. The milestone placement process in the provinces often involved the establishment of temporary camps where workers could reside while constructing roads and installing milestones. These camps were equipped with basic amenities, including food supplies and tools for quarrying stone. The daily routine within these camps was structured around the dual functions of road construction and milestone placement, with laborers divided into teams responsible for specific tasks. Some were tasked with measuring distances, while others focused on carving the inscriptions to be displayed on the milestones. By the 3rd century CE, the administrative framework governing milestone placement began to experience strains, largely due to the increasing pressures of external invasions and internal strife. The quality of road maintenance and the consistency of milestone placement deteriorated, as local authorities became preoccupied with immediate security concerns. Despite these challenges, the foundational principles established during the earlier periods remained influential in the remnants of Roman road infrastructure. The decline of the Western Roman Empire in the late 5th century CE marked a significant turning point in the legacy of milestone regulations. While the practice of placing milestones continued in some areas, the systematic approach that characterized earlier centuries waned. Roads that had once been vital arteries of commerce and communication fell into disrepair, and milestones became more sporadic, often reflecting the localized practices of the emerging feudal system. Throughout the subsequent centuries, the remnants of Roman milestones served as a testament to the once coherent administrative order. In the medieval period, local lords and landowners began to install their own markers, often incorporating elements of the Roman milestones but adapting them to fit the evolving socio-political landscape. The inscriptions on these new milestones frequently referenced local landmarks rather than imperial authority, signaling a shift away from the centralized control that had characterized Roman governance. By the time of the Renaissance, interest in classical architecture and engineering revived discussions of Roman milestones and their significance. Scholars and architects sought to understand the principles behind their placement and construction, leading to a re-examination of the regulatory frameworks that had once governed their placement. However, the systematic and boring nature of these regulations would remain largely relegated to academic discourse, as the practical concerns of road construction had shifted dramatically. In conclusion, the evolution of Roman road milestone placement regulations reflects a complex interplay of administrative governance, architectural development, and socio-political context. From the rudimentary markers of the early republic to the standardized milestones of the imperial era, the regulatory framework surrounding milestone placement evolved to meet the needs of a growing empire. Despite the eventual decline of this system, the legacy of Roman milestones endures as a testament to the bureaucratic and engineering achievements of one of history's most influential civilizations. The construction methods and materials employed in the fabrication of Roman road milestones were characterized by a systematic approach that reflected the broader engineering practices of the Roman Empire. The milestones themselves were typically made from locally sourced stone, predominantly limestone, granite, or basalt, depending on the geographical region from which they were hewn. The choice of material was dictated by both availability and durability, with granite being favored in regions such as North Africa, where it was abundant, while limestone was often used in more temperate zones. From the early Republic period, around 509 BCE, through the height of the empire in the 2nd century CE, milestones were constructed using a variety of techniques. The basic construction method involved quarrying the stone blocks, which were then shaped into rectangular prisms, typically measuring approximately 1.5 meters in height and 0.5 meters in width, although variations in size did occur based on regional preferences and specific local regulations. The shaping process was conducted utilizing hand tools such as chisels and hammers, with skilled laborers known as lapidarii, stone workers, tasked with this labor-intensive job. Once the stones were prepared, they were transported to their designated locations along the roads. This transportation often involved the use of carts and manpower, with groups of laborers working together to move the heavy blocks, which could weigh as much as 500 kilograms. The average distance for transport varied significantly depending on the proximity of quarries to the roadways, but records suggest that milestones could be transported over distances of up to 20 kilometers in a single day under optimal conditions. The placement of milestones was as much an administrative process as it was an engineering challenge. Each milestone was strategically positioned at intervals of approximately 1,000 paces, about 1,480 meters, along the main thoroughfares, with the intention of providing travelers with clear information regarding distances to major cities and waypoints. The milestones were typically inscribed with the name of the emperor, the distance to the next significant location, and occasionally the name of the road itself, with some milestones also featuring additional inscriptions that commemorated the benefactor who funded the construction or renovation of the road. Maintenance procedures for these milestones were established as part of a broader system of road maintenance that the Roman Empire implemented. Regular inspections were mandated to ensure that milestones remained visible and legible, as time, weather, and human activity could erode the inscriptions. Maintenance crews, composed of local laborers, were responsible for cleaning the stones, repairing any damage, and, when necessary, replacing them altogether. It was not uncommon for milestones to be replaced every 10 to 15 years, particularly in high-traffic areas or regions experiencing adverse weather conditions. Financial records pertaining to the construction and maintenance of milestones were meticulously documented by local magistrates and provincial governors. These records included detailed accounts of expenditures, labor costs, and materials procurement. The financial aspects of milestone placement were typically funded through a combination of state allocations and local taxation, with certain emperors, such as Augustus, reigned 27 BCE, 14 CE, instituting specific road taxes to assist in funding these public works. A typical ledger entry might include the following details: the date of expense, the type of material procured, the quantity, e.g., 50 blocks of limestone, 1 meter each, the cost per unit, e.g., 5 denarii per block, and the total cost, e.g., 250 denarii. It is estimated that the average cost of placing a single milestone, including labor and materials, ranged from 100 to 300 denarii, depending on the region and the complexity of the installation. In terms of personnel, the implementation and oversight of milestone placements were the responsibility of various officials, including the curators viarum, road supervisors, and local magistrates. The curators were appointed by the Senate and were responsible for the overall maintenance of roads within their jurisdiction, including the installation and upkeep of milestones. Their job descriptions included overseeing teams of laborers, managing budgets, and ensuring compliance with regulations regarding milestone placement and inscription. Local magistrates, often elected officials, played a crucial role in liaising between the curators and the local populace. Their duties included organizing labor for maintenance tasks, gathering community feedback on road conditions, and reporting to higher authorities on the state of the roads and milestones. This hierarchical structure ensured that milestones were not only constructed but also maintained in a manner that served the needs of the empire's vast network of roads. Technical specifications for Roman milestones were guided by a set of standardized dimensions and inscriptions. Most milestones adhered to a height of approximately 1.5 meters, with a width of around 0.5 meters, as previously noted. The thickness generally ranged from 0.3 to 0.5 meters, providing sufficient stability while allowing for clear inscriptions. Inscriptions were typically carved into the stone using a process known as letter cutting, which involved incising the letters into the surface of the stone using a chisel. The most common script used was Latin, though Greek inscriptions were also found in areas with significant Greek-speaking populations. The letters were usually around 10 centimeters in height, allowing for visibility from a distance. The content of the inscriptions followed a standard format, often beginning with imp. Erator, followed by the name of the reigning emperor, the distance to the next city or significant landmark, and sometimes the name of the road. For instance, an inscription might read, Imp Nero Caesar Augustus, 10 miles to Roma. Such standardized formats not only provided clarity for travelers but also reinforced the authority of the emperor and the state. In conclusion, the evolution of Roman road milestone placement regulations encapsulates a broad spectrum of construction methods, maintenance procedures, financial accountability, personnel responsibilities, and technical specifications. The meticulous attention to detail in each aspect of this system reflected the Romans' commitment to infrastructure and their understanding of the importance of communication and logistics within their expansive empire. Through a combination of skilled labor, effective administration, and durable materials, the milestones of ancient Rome became enduring symbols of a highly organized society, the legacies of which can still be observed in modern road systems today. The construction methods and materials employed in the fabrication of Roman road milestones were characterized by a systematic approach that reflected the broader engineering practices of the Roman Empire. The milestones themselves were typically made from locally sourced stone, predominantly limestone, granite, or basalt, depending on the geographical region from which they were hewn. The choice of material was dictated by both availability and durability, with granite being favored in regions such as Gaul and Britannia, where its robustness could withstand the harsh weather and heavy traffic of Roman military and trade caravans. The production of these milestones frequently began with the quarrying of stone from nearby locations. For instance, in the late 1st century BCE, the quarrying operations in the region around the city of Volterra in Etruria were known for their high-quality travertine, which was often used for road milestones throughout central Italy. Workers employed both simple tools like chisels and hammers as well as leveraging natural fissures in the rock to extract large blocks. These blocks would then be transported to the construction site, often using wooden sledges or carts, with teams of oxen providing the necessary power. Once on site, the stones were shaped into rectangular prisms, typically measuring about 1.5 meters in height and 0.5 meters in width. The dimensions were not only practical for visibility but also standardized to facilitate easy recognition by travelers and merchants. The surfaces of the milestones were then polished to enhance their visibility, often inscribed with important information such as the distance to the nearest town, the name of the reigning emperor, and occasionally even the name of the person responsible for the milestone's erection, which served as a form of public acknowledgement and honor. One notable example of Roman milestones can be found along the Via Appia, one of the earliest and strategically significant Roman roads that connected Rome to the southern regions of Italy. As early as 312 BCE, when Appius Claudius Caecus initiated the construction of this road, milestones were erected every Roman mile, approximately 1,480 meters, to help travelers gauge their progress. The milestones along the Via Appia were not mere markers but also served as a testament to the power of the Roman state, emphasizing the reach of its influence and the efficiency of its infrastructure. In terms of historical context, the use of milestones can be traced back to the early days of the Roman Republic, but it was during the imperial period, particularly from the reign of Augustus, 27 BCE, 14 CE, onward, that their production became more widespread and systematic. Augustus is credited with establishing the first comprehensive road network across the empire, and this included the systematic placement of milestones, which were crucial for the administration and military mobilization. The famous phrase, "All roads lead to Rome," underscores the importance of these pathways and their markers in maintaining Rome's dominance over conquered territories. Milestones were not only functional but also carried symbolic weight. For instance, during the reign of Emperor Trajan, 98 to 117 CE, milestones were often inscribed with accolades reflecting military victories or public works, such as the Dacian Wars, which celebrated the expansion of the empire. The widespread use of Latin inscriptions also served to unify the various regions under Roman control, reinforcing a sense of shared cultural identity. The durability of these stone markers was remarkable. Many Roman milestones have survived to this day, providing valuable insights into the empire's infrastructure and governance. Archaeological evidence suggests that some milestones were deliberately placed in strategic locations, such as at junctions or along key trade routes, which facilitated commerce and communication across vast distances. The preservation of these artifacts allows modern historians to reconstruct the routes that were vital to the Roman economy and military logistics. In conclusion, the construction and significance of Roman road milestones reflect not only the engineering prowess of the Roman Empire but also its administrative efficiency and cultural cohesion. As both functional markers and symbols of imperial power, these milestones continue to be a focal point for understanding the extensive network that underpinned one of history's greatest civilizations. The systematic approach in their creation, combined with the rich historical context, illustrates the profound impact of Roman engineering on subsequent civilizations and their infrastructure development. The construction methods and materials employed in the creation of Roman road milestones reflect the meticulous attention to detail that characterized Roman engineering practices. The milestones, officially termed milestones or miliaria, served not only as markers of distance but also as indicators of the Roman Empire's extensive network of roads. The first known milestones were erected during the reign of Emperor Augustus, around 20 BCE, and were primarily constructed from locally sourced materials, which varied based on regional availability. Typically, the most common materials used for milestones included limestone, granite, and travertine. For example, a standard milestone might measure approximately 1.5 meters in height and 0.5 meters in width, with a depth of about 0.4 meters. The surface of these stones was often polished to enhance visibility, featuring inscriptions that detailed the distance to the nearest city or notable location, along with the name of the reigning emperor. This practice not only served a practical purpose but also reinforced the authority and presence of the imperial administration across the empire. The construction process began with the selection of an appropriate site, often located at intervals of approximately 1,000 paces along major roads. The Roman foot, measuring about 29.6 centimeters, provided the basis for these measurements. Once the site was determined, laborers would excavate a foundation of about 0.5 meters deep to ensure stability. The stone was then carefully shaped and transported, often using sledges or carts, to the designated location. A mixture of lime mortar was applied to secure the milestone in place, ensuring it could withstand the elements and the passage of time. Maintenance of these milestones was an ongoing responsibility of local authorities, who were tasked with inspecting the markers at regular intervals. Evidence from various inscriptions suggests that maintenance activities occurred at least every 5 years, with local magistrates or appointed officials responsible for ensuring the visibility and structural integrity of the milestones. Any milestone that became illegible or damaged was to be replaced promptly, often at the expense of the local government. The costs associated with maintenance varied significantly depending on the region, but estimates suggest that a single replacement milestone could range from 2 to 5 sestertii, a significant sum in terms of local budgets. The financial records associated with milestone placement and maintenance provide a fascinating glimpse into the economic considerations of Roman infrastructure development. A detailed analysis of records from the 1st century CE indicates that the total expenditure on road maintenance, including milestones, could consume up to 10% of a local province's annual budget. For instance, the province of Gallia Narbonensis allocated approximately 15,000 sestertii annually for road maintenance, which included the costs of materials, labor, and administrative overhead. This expenditure highlights the Roman commitment to maintaining a reliable network of roads, which was vital for trade, military logistics, and communication across the empire. The personnel involved in the placement and maintenance of milestones included a diverse array of individuals. At the top of the hierarchy were local magistrates, responsible for overseeing infrastructure projects and ensuring compliance with Roman regulations. Under their supervision were skilled laborers known as fabrici, who specialized in stone cutting and masonry. These craftsmen underwent extensive training and often belonged to guilds that regulated their practices and provided mutual support. Additionally, lower-tier workers, including common laborers and slaves, were employed for the more physically demanding aspects of the construction process. Job descriptions within this framework varied considerably. Magistrates were tasked with planning and authorizing the placement of milestones, as well as allocating financial resources for their construction and upkeep. The fabrici were responsible for the technical execution of the milestones, ensuring that each marker met established specifications. Laborers engaged in the actual physical work, including excavation, transportation of materials, and final installation. Each role was crucial to the successful implementation of the Roman road milestone system, underscoring the collaborative nature of these projects. The technical specifications governing the design and placement of milestones were codified into various regulations throughout the empire. The Lex Julia Municipalis, enacted around 45 BCE, established fundamental guidelines for milestone construction. Key specifications included the minimum height of 1.2 meters, the requirement for inscriptions to be written in Latin, and the stipulation that distances be measured from the nearest city gate. These regulations ensured uniformity across the empire, allowing travelers to navigate the extensive road system with relative ease. Inscriptions on milestones typically followed a standardized format, which included the phrase, mil passuum, 1,000 paces, followed by the distance to the nearest urban center. For example, a milestone might read, 12 MP ad Romam, indicating that the marker was 12 Roman miles from Rome. The use of Roman numerals was prevalent, and the inscriptions were often accompanied by the name of the emperor in power at the time of the milestone's installation, further cementing the connection between the imperial authority and the infrastructure of the empire. Through the study of archaeological findings and inscriptions, scholars have reconstructed various aspects of milestone placement and the broader implications of this practice. For instance, the placement of milestones along the Via Appia, one of the earliest and most important Roman roads, reveals a deliberate strategy to enhance trade routes and facilitate military movements. Milestones were strategically positioned to ensure that travelers could easily gauge their progress and plan their journeys accordingly. The evolution of these regulations continued throughout the centuries, with notable updates occurring during the reigns of subsequent emperors. For instance, Emperor Trajan's reforms in the early 2nd century CE included guidelines for the placement of milestones at intervals of 1,000 paces, a practice that became standardized across the empire. The resulting network of roads, marked by these milestones, contributed significantly to the mobility of the Roman army, as well as to commerce and communication among provinces. As the empire expanded, so too did the complexity of managing milestone placement and maintenance. In the 3rd century CE, the growing administrative challenges led to the establishment of specialized offices responsible for overseeing road infrastructure within individual provinces. These offices were tasked with maintaining accurate financial records, coordinating labor, and ensuring compliance with regulatory standards. The increasing bureaucratic oversight reflects the Roman commitment to maintaining the integrity of their road system, even as the empire faced various challenges. In summary, the evolution of Roman road milestone placement regulations encompasses a broad array of factors, including construction methods, maintenance procedures, financial records, personnel, and technical specifications. The systematic approach employed by the Romans in the establishment and maintenance of these milestones exemplifies their commitment to infrastructure development, which had lasting implications for subsequent civilizations. The enduring legacy of Roman engineering is evident in the continued use of milestones and the principles of road construction that emerged from this era, influencing infrastructure practices well into the modern age. The construction methods and materials used in the establishment of Roman road milestones were dictated by the overarching principles of Roman engineering, which emphasized durability and functionality. The primary materials employed included limestone, granite, and occasionally basalt, which were quarried from nearby regions to reduce transportation costs. The use of limestone, for instance, was prevalent in the regions of Latium and Campania, where it was readily available. The stones were typically quarried in rectangular blocks measuring approximately 1 meter in height, 0.5 meters in width, and 0.3 meters in depth. These dimensions facilitated ease of transport and installation. Road construction began with the laying of a solid foundation, known as the castacemen, which consisted of large stones laid flat. This was followed by a layer of smaller stones or gravel, referred to as the rudis, which measured about 15 to 30 centimeters in thickness. The final layer, called nucleus, was composed of finer materials, such as crushed stone or gravel, which created a smooth surface for travel. The average thickness of the nucleus layer ranged from 10 to 15 centimeters. The milestones were then placed at intervals of roughly 1,000 paces, approximately 1,481 meters, along the road, a distance standardized by the time of Emperor Augustus, 27 BCE to 14 CE. Maintenance procedures for these milestones were as systematic as their initial construction. Inspections were conducted biannually, typically in spring and autumn, to ensure that the milestones remained upright and legible. Maintenance crews comprised local laborers who were responsible for cleaning the milestones of debris and vegetation, repainting inscriptions, and replacing any damaged stones. The cost of maintenance was recorded in local financial ledgers, with expenses for repairs averaging around 10 denarii per milestone per year by the early 2nd century CE. Financial records detailing the costs associated with the construction and maintenance of Roman road milestones reveal a meticulous approach to budgeting. Each milestone installation was recorded in the census documents, which tracked expenditures, labor costs, and materials. For instance, it was noted in 75 CE that the cost of quarrying stone was approximately 3 denarii per cubic meter, while transportation costs added an additional 2 denarii per kilometer. The overall expenditure for a single milestone, inclusive of labor, materials, and transportation, averaged between 25 to 50 denarii, depending on the distance from the quarry to the installation site. Personnel involved in the construction and maintenance of these milestones were categorized into specific roles, each with clearly defined responsibilities. The architectus was tasked with overseeing the entire project, ensuring compliance with engineering standards and regulations. Under the architectus were the magistri, who directly supervised the laborers, known as operarii. The operarii were typically unskilled workers hired on a temporary basis, while the magistri were often experienced craftsmen or labor leaders who had undergone training in road construction. Additionally, a scribe was employed to maintain detailed records of expenditures, labor hours, and materials used, ensuring accountability throughout the process. Technical specifications of the milestones themselves were dictated by a combination of legal and practical considerations. Each milestone generally featured a rectangular shape, measuring approximately 1.5 meters in height and 0.5 meters in width, with a depth of 0.3 meters. The surface of the stone was often inscribed with the name of the emperor, the distance to the nearest city, and occasionally, the name of the road itself. The inscriptions were typically engraved in Latin, using a standard script that adhered to the dimensions of the stone. The letters were designed to be at least 10 centimeters in height to ensure visibility from a distance, contributing to their functional role as navigational aids. The placement of milestones was not only a practical matter but also a political one. Each milestone served as a reminder of imperial authority and the reach of Roman civilization into conquered territories. The use of milestones as a form of propaganda became increasingly evident during the reign of Emperor Trajan, 98 CE to 117 CE, who commissioned the construction of roads throughout the provinces of Dacia and beyond. In these regions, milestones were inscribed with messages celebrating military victories and the benevolence of the emperor, further solidifying the connection between infrastructure development and imperial power. Throughout the Roman Empire, the regulations governing milestone placement evolved periodically, reflecting changes in governance and administrative practices. The Lex Irnitana, a legal inscription from the province of Hispania, provides a glimpse into the regulations concerning milestone placement during the 1st century CE. It established that milestones should be placed at intervals of 1,000 paces along major roads, while secondary roads were to have milestones at intervals of 2,000 paces. This regulation aimed to standardize the distance markers across the empire, facilitating navigation for travelers and traders alike. In addition to the legal stipulations regarding placement and construction, the Roman government established penalties for neglecting milestone maintenance. If a milestone was found to be damaged or illegible, local magistrates were required to issue fines against the responsible parties, which could include local officials or labor supervisors. Such measures were intended to ensure accountability and adherence to the established regulations, underscoring the importance of these markers in maintaining the efficiency of the empire's transportation network. The evolution of milestone placement regulations continued into the late Roman Empire, wherein the need for clear navigational aids became increasingly essential as the empire expanded. During the reign of Emperor Diocletian, 284 CE to 305 CE, a series of reforms were introduced that not only addressed administrative efficiency but also emphasized the importance of road infrastructure. The Edict on Maximum Prices, issued in 301 CE, included provisions related to the pricing of materials used in milestone construction and maintenance, reflecting the economic pressures of the time. By the early 4th century CE, milestones had come to symbolize both the physical and ideological underpinnings of Roman authority. The rise of Christianity and the subsequent decline of the empire influenced the regulatory framework surrounding milestones. With the eventual fragmentation of Roman authority, the meticulous standards for milestone placement began to wane. The once uniform system of milestones became increasingly sporadic, with local communities assuming responsibility for their maintenance, leading to variations in size, material, and inscription. Despite the decline of the Roman Empire, the legacy of milestone placement regulations endured. The principles established during the Roman period laid the groundwork for subsequent road construction practices throughout Europe. As the Middle Ages progressed, the remnants of Roman milestones continued to be utilized, albeit in a more haphazard manner. The knowledge of proper road construction and maintenance was preserved through various texts and manuals, influencing the infrastructure development of emerging kingdoms. In conclusion, the boring evolution of Roman road milestone placement regulations reflects a meticulous approach to engineering, governance, and public infrastructure. From the construction methods and materials used to the maintenance procedures and financial records kept, the Romans demonstrated an unparalleled commitment to ensuring the functionality and durability of their transportation networks. The personnel involved and the technical specifications established were instrumental in creating a system that not only facilitated trade and travel but also reinforced the political authority of the empire. As the Roman Empire transitioned through various phases of governance, the regulations surrounding milestone placement adapted, ultimately shaping the trajectory of road construction practices for centuries to come. The legacy of these milestones, both literally and figuratively, continues to influence modern infrastructure, serving as a testament to the enduring impact of Roman engineering. The construction methods employed in the fabrication and placement of Roman road milestones were characterized by a systematic approach that ensured durability and consistency across the extensive network of Roman roads. Initially, milestones were crafted from locally sourced stone, primarily limestone and granite, which were selected for their durability and ease of carving. The earliest documented use of stone milestones dates back to the reign of Emperor Augustus, around 20 BCE, when the first standardized milestones began to appear along the Via Appia. Milestones were typically rectangular in shape, with dimensions averaging approximately 1.2 meters in height, 0.6 meters in width, and 0.3 meters in depth. The stones were often inscribed with the distance to the nearest city or landmark, as well as the name of the reigning emperor. The inscriptions were executed using chisels, with letters typically measuring 10 centimeters in height, ensuring visibility from a considerable distance. The placement of these stones was strategically determined to align with the Roman road system, which was carefully surveyed and laid out to optimize travel efficiency. The construction process began with the selection of a suitable site for the milestone. The site had to be easily visible to travelers and positioned approximately every 1,000 paces, or roughly every 1,500 meters, along the road. Once the location was determined, laborers would excavate a hole deep enough to secure the milestone firmly, usually about 0.5 meters deep, depending on the terrain's stability. The stone was then erected, and additional materials such as gravel or compacted earth were used to reinforce the base. Maintenance procedures for the milestones were often outlined in local regulations, emphasizing the importance of keeping them visible and intact. Routine inspections were conducted, typically quarterly, by appointed officials known as curators viarum. These officials were responsible for the maintenance of roads and their accompanying infrastructures, including milestones. Should a milestone become damaged or obscured by vegetation, the curators viarum were required to initiate repair procedures within a specified timeframe, generally not exceeding 30 days. The financial records associated with the construction and maintenance of milestones provide insight into the economic aspects of the Roman infrastructure system. During the early 1st century CE, the costs associated with the creation and placement of milestones varied based on geographic location and material availability. On average, the expense for a single milestone, including labor and materials, ranged from 50 to 200 denarii, with the highest costs typically found in urban areas where skilled labor was more expensive. To finance these initiatives, local governments would allocate funds from their annual budgets, which were meticulously documented in scrolls and later in codices. For instance, in the year 73 CE, the town of Pompeii allocated 1,500 denarii specifically for the repair and replacement of milestones along the Via Herculia. Such records illustrate the financial commitment of Roman municipalities to maintaining their road networks, which were vital for trade, military movement, and communication. Personnel involved in the construction and maintenance of milestones included a range of specialized workers. The primary labor force consisted of stonemasons, who were skilled artisans capable of shaping and inscribing stone. These stonemasons typically received wages in the range of 2 to 4 denarii per day, depending on their experience and skill level. Additionally, laborers who assisted in transporting the stones from quarries to the installation sites were also compensated, often earning about 1 denarius per day. Job descriptions for the personnel engaged in this process were clearly defined. Stonemasons were tasked with the careful carving of inscriptions, ensuring that each letter was properly formed and legible. They were also responsible for advising on the selection of stones based on local materials. Laborers, on the other hand, focused on the physical tasks of excavation, transportation, and placement of the milestones. Supervisors, known as prefecti, oversaw the entire operation, ensuring adherence to construction timelines and quality standards. Technical specifications for the milestones were rigorously codified to maintain uniformity across the empire. According to the Corpus Inscriptionum Latinarum, a compilation of Latin inscriptions, milestones were required to adhere to specific dimensions and placement distances. The placement of a milestone was not merely a matter of aesthetics, it served practical purposes, ensuring that travelers could gauge their progress along the road. The inscriptions on the milestones followed a standardized format, which included the phrase, mil passus, indicating the measurement of Roman miles, equivalent to approximately 1,480 meters. This terminology was crucial for travelers who relied on these markers for navigation. Additionally, milestones often featured the name of the emperor at the time of placement, which served both a commemorative function and a means of asserting imperial presence across the territories. The evolution of milestone placement regulations continued through the subsequent centuries, with adjustments made to accommodate changing transportation needs and technological advancements. By the late 2nd century CE, the introduction of new materials, such as concrete, began to influence milestone construction. Concrete allowed for greater design flexibility and durability, leading to milestones that could withstand the elements more effectively than their stone predecessors. Despite these advancements, the core principles of milestone construction and maintenance remained largely unchanged through the 3rd and 4th centuries CE. The regulations regarding placement distances, technical specifications, and maintenance procedures remained in effect, ensuring that the Roman road system continued to function efficiently. In summary, the boring evolution of Roman road milestone placement regulations reflects a meticulous approach to infrastructure that balanced practicality with a commitment to enduring quality. The construction methods, materials, maintenance procedures, financial aspects, personnel roles, and technical specifications established a framework that not only served the needs of the Roman Empire but also laid the groundwork for future generations. The legacy of these regulations continues to resonate in contemporary infrastructure practices, illustrating the far-reaching impact of Roman engineering principles. The construction methods employed in the fabrication and placement of Roman road milestones were characterized by a systematic approach that ensured durability and consistency across the extensive network of Roman roads. Initially, milestones were crafted from locally sourced stone, primarily limestone and granite, which were selected for their durability and ease of carving. The earliest documented use of stone milestones dates back to the reign of Emperor Augustus, around 20 BCE, when the first milestones were erected along the Via Appia, one of the most significant roads of ancient Rome. The milestones themselves were often rectangular pillars, typically measuring about 1.2 to 1.8 meters in height and 0.5 meters in width, although variations existed depending on local customs and the importance of the road. The stones were generally hewn into shape using chisels and hammers, tools that had evolved over centuries of stoneworking. This process of shaping the stone was labor-intensive, requiring skilled artisans who could ensure that the inscriptions were not only legible but also aesthetically pleasing. One notable case study is the milestone found along the Via Augusta, which connected Rome to the northern regions of Italy. This milestone, dated to around 9 CE, is inscribed with the name of the emperor at the time, Tiberius, and details the distance to the nearest town. This practice of including information about the reigning emperor served both a practical purpose, providing travelers with vital information, and a propagandistic function, reinforcing the emperor's presence and authority throughout the empire. The Romans were meticulous about the placement of milestones. They typically positioned these markers at intervals of 1 Roman mile, which was approximately 1,480 meters, 4,850 feet. The precision in measuring these distances demonstrated the advanced engineering skills of Roman surveyors, known as agrimensors. They utilized tools such as the groma, a cross-shaped surveying instrument, to accurately mark straight lines and measure distances. The process of laying out a road involved extensive planning, often with teams of laborers who would clear the path, level the ground, and set the groundwork for the road's surface. In addition to their functional role, milestones also served a ceremonial purpose. They marked significant boundaries, such as the transition from one province to another or the point at which a traveler was entering a city. For instance, milestones along the Via Flaminia, which connected Rome to Ariminum, modern Rimini, were not just markers of distance but also symbols of Roman civilization's reach and control over the territories it governed. The inscriptions on these milestones varied widely, often reflecting local dialects, customs, and the political climate of the time. One particularly fascinating example is the milestone discovered in Britain, which dates back to around 100 CE. This stone, found near modern-day Chester, boasts an inscription in Latin but also incorporates elements of the local Celtic language, showcasing the Romans' integration of local cultures into their administrative practices. The durability of these milestones can be attributed not only to the quality of the stone used but also to the methods of installation. Roman engineers often set the milestones into a foundation of compacted earth or gravel, ensuring stability against the elements and the passage of time. The stones were typically buried to a depth of about 0.5 meters, allowing them to withstand the forces of weather and human activity. In some instances, milestones were even embedded in concrete, which was a hallmark of Roman construction techniques and contributed to their remarkable longevity. Historically, the use of milestones can be traced back to the early Roman Republic, but it was during the Empire that their prevalence and significance increased dramatically. By the 3rd century CE, it is estimated that there were over 1,500 milestones marking the various roads across the empire. This proliferation can be linked to the Romans' emphasis on road construction as a means of facilitating trade, military movement, and the spread of culture. Moreover, the significance of milestones extended beyond their practical applications. They became symbols of the Roman Empire's administrative efficiency and its ability to maintain control over vast distances. The very act of marking the roads with milestones sent a clear message to the populace: the empire was organized, accessible, and in control. In summary, the construction and placement of Roman road milestones encapsulated the engineering prowess, administrative efficiency, and cultural integration of the Roman Empire. From their inception under Augustus around 20 BCE to their widespread use across the empire, These markers not only facilitated travel and communication but also stood as enduring symbols of Roman authority and ingenuity. The meticulous methods employed in their fabrication and installation reflected a deeper understanding of both the natural landscape and the needs of a diverse empire, making them an integral part of Roman infrastructure. The boring evolution of Roman road milestone placement regulations, Part 6. The Roman Empire, with its vast expanse and diverse regions, presented an intriguing tapestry of local customs and regulations regarding the placement of road milestones. While the central edicts from Rome provided a framework, regional variations emerged due to geographical, cultural, and administrative differences. This section delves into the subtleties of these regional variations and comparisons, the evolution of milestone regulations across different time periods, the bureaucratic frameworks that govern these practices, the complexities of supply chain and logistics, and the methods employed for record keeping. Regional variations and comparisons. The Roman Empire was not a monolith, it was a collection of provinces, each with its own unique characteristics influenced by local geography and the pre-existing systems before Roman governance. For instance, in the provinces of Britannia, the milestones often reflected local landmarks or utilized materials endemic to the region, such as the local granite. The inscriptions on these milestones frequently included references to local tribes or deities, demonstrating a blend of Roman authority and local tradition. Conversely, in the provinces of Gaul, milestones were more standardized, often aligning with the Roman practice of using a uniform stone type, typically limestone, and a more uniform inscription style. The Gallic milestones featured a more direct and utilitarian approach, focusing on distances to major cities and not deviating into local lore. This difference can be attributed to Gaul's earlier integration into the Roman Empire, resulting in a more centralized administrative approach compared to the more recent annexation of Britannia. In the eastern provinces, such as Asia Minor, milestones served not only as distance markers but also as inscriptions that celebrated the local governors or benefactors who funded the road construction. This practice was less common in the more utilitarian western provinces where the focus remained on distance and direction rather than glorification. Therefore, one could observe how the cultural context of each region influenced the purpose and aesthetic of milestone placement. Evolution over different time periods. The evolution of milestone regulations can be traced through several distinct periods of Roman history. In the early Republic, milestones were rudimentary, often crafted from available materials without standardized measurements. The use of milestones became more pronounced during the late Republic, particularly with the expansion of the road network under the auspices of prominent figures such as Appius Claudius Caecus, who initiated the famous Appian Way. As the empire expanded, the need for a systematic approach to milestone placement became apparent. By the early imperial period, the regulations surrounding milestone distances and placement had become more codified. The Emperor Augustus was pivotal in this transformation, establishing standards that required milestones to be placed at intervals of 1,000 paces, approximately 1.48 kilometers, along major routes. This regulation not only enhanced the utility of the milestones but also standardized the measurement system throughout the empire. During the Flavian dynasty, further refinements were made, including the introduction of an imperial decree that mandated the inclusion of the name of the emperor on each milestone. This served dual purposes. It reinforced the emperor's presence throughout the realm and also provided a chronological marker for the milestones, offering historians a clearer timeline regarding the expansion and maintenance of Roman roads. The post-imperial period witnessed a decline in the systematic nature of milestone regulations as the empire fragmented. The once uniform standards gave way to localized practices, with remnants of milestones being repurposed or neglected entirely. This decline marked a significant departure from the stringent regulations of previous centuries, as the focus shifted from maintaining the road network to addressing more immediate survival concerns in a crumbling empire. Bureaucratic regulations and laws. The bureaucratic landscape surrounding milestone placement was complex, involving various levels of governance. The Roman state relied heavily on a well-structured administrative system that enabled it to manage vast territories efficiently. Regulations concerning road construction and milestone placement were formalized through a series of legal decrees and edicts. At the foundation of this bureaucratic structure was the cursus publicus, the state-sponsored courier and transportation service that facilitated communication and logistics across the empire. The cursus publicus not only dictated the placement of milestones but also prescribed the duties of local magistrates in maintaining these markers. For example, local officials were often required to submit reports on the condition of milestones within their jurisdictions, thus creating a feedback loop that enabled the central government to assess the state of the road network. The Lex Irnitana, a legal inscription from the province of Hispania, provides insight into the regulatory landscape. It outlines various responsibilities and penalties associated with the maintenance of roads and milestones, highlighting the legal ramifications for neglecting these duties. Local magistrates were often held accountable for the upkeep of milestones, with fines imposed for failures to adhere to the established regulations. Such legal frameworks ensured a degree of consistency across the provinces, despite regional variations. Supply chain and logistics. The logistics of milestone placement were intricately tied to the broader supply chain of materials and labor. The Roman Empire was adept at mobilizing resources efficiently, which was crucial for the construction and maintenance of its extensive road network. The supply chains involved in milestone placement were multifaceted, encompassing quarrying, transportation, and labor management. Materials for milestones were sourced from local quarries, which necessitated a network of transport routes that could bear heavy loads. The proximity of quarries to major roads often dictated the choice of material, as transporting heavy stones over long distances was both time-consuming and costly. Therefore, milestones in regions with abundant limestone, like southern Gaul, were more common, while areas lacking suitable stones saw the use of alternative materials, including clay or even wood, though the latter was less durable. The logistics also required a coordinated effort in labor management. The Roman state employed a range of workers, from free laborers to slaves, to construct and maintain these milestones. The organization of labor was paramount. Work crews were often divided by their skills, with stonemasons specifically trained in carving inscriptions and shaping stones. Additionally, local populations were sometimes conscripted for labor on public works, a practice that not only provided manpower but also fostered a sense of community ownership over the infrastructure. The movement of materials and workers was facilitated by the very roads that milestones marked. This interdependence highlights the practical significance of milestone placement. They were not merely markers of distance but integral components of the logistics network that sustained the Roman Empire. Record-keeping methods. The Roman Empire's approach to record-keeping regarding milestone placement was a blend of meticulous documentation and practical necessity. Local administrators were responsible for maintaining records that detailed the placement, condition, and even the inscriptions on milestones. These records were essential for several reasons. They ensured compliance with imperial regulations, provided information for future road maintenance, and served as historical documentation for the empire's achievements. One of the primary methods of record-keeping involved the use of tabulae, or tablets, which were inscribed with details about milestones. These tablets were often made of wood or wax, allowing for easy modification and updates. In more permanent cases, stone inscriptions provided a lasting record of milestone placements, often detailing the distance to the nearest towns and the name of the emperor at the time of placement. Additionally, the census played a crucial role in record-keeping, as it involved the documentation of populations and resources in each province, which inherently included infrastructure-related data. Information gathered during the census would be utilized to allocate resources for road maintenance, ensuring that milestones remained intact and functional. In the later years of the empire, as administrative efficiency began to decline, record-keeping became more sporadic. The disintegration of centralized control meant that local jurisdictions often resorted to ad hoc methods of documentation, resulting in inconsistent records of milestone placements. Despite these challenges, some records persisted, providing historians with invaluable insights into the practices and regulations surrounding Roman road milestones. Conclusion. In summation, the evolution of Roman road milestone placement regulations is marked by a complex interplay of regional variations, bureaucratic regulations, logistical considerations, and record-keeping methods. Each aspect contributes to an understanding of how the Roman Empire managed its vast road network, reflecting not only the empire's administrative capabilities but also its cultural diversity. From the early, rudimentary milestones of the Republic to the standardized practices of the imperial period, the story of milestone placement is one of evolution, adaptation, and the relentless pursuit of order in a sprawling empire. While the minutiae of these regulations may seem tedious, they provide a window into the daily operations of an empire that shaped the course of history. The legacy of Roman road milestones endures, not merely as stones along a path, but as markers of a civilization that understood the importance of connectivity, communication, and the enduring nature of infrastructure. The history of Roman road milestone placement regulations is an intricate and multifaceted narrative, incorporating an array of regional variations, bureaucratic regulations, and logistical considerations that speak to the broader complexities of Roman infrastructure management. In this segment, we will delve into the nuances of regional variations and comparisons, the evolutionary trajectory of these regulations over different time periods, the bureaucratic framework that underpinned them, the intricacies of supply chain and logistics, and the methods employed for record keeping. Each of these aspects contributes to a fuller understanding of the seemingly mundane yet profoundly significant topic of milestone placement. ### Regional variations and comparisons. In the vast expanse of the Roman Empire, road networks were not uniform but instead exhibited pronounced regional variations in the placement and design of milestones. In the provinces of Gaul, for instance, milestones were often elaborately carved with inscriptions that not only indicated distance but also celebrated local deities or significant events. This was markedly different from the more utilitarian approach observed in the provinces of Britannia, where milestones tended to be simpler and focused primarily on functional distance markers. In the eastern provinces, such as Asia Minor, one can observe a different stylistic approach to milestone design. Here, milestones were frequently embellished with intricate bas-reliefs, which depicted scenes of military victories or local flora and fauna. These artistic variations can be attributed to local cultural influences and the degree of Romanization within each province. For instance, in more urbanized areas such as Ephesus, milestones bore inscriptions in both Latin and Greek, reflecting the bilingual nature of the populace and the administrative practices that catered to a diverse citizenry. Comparatively, in the northern frontier regions, particularly along the limes, milestones served not only as distance markers but also as indicators of Roman territorial claims. The strategic placement of milestones in these areas was critical for military logistics and communication, emphasizing a more pragmatic approach that prioritized functionality over aesthetics. The differences in milestone placement across regions underscore the localized adaptations made by Roman authorities in response to geographical, cultural, and political contexts. ###Evolution over different time periods. The evolution of milestone placement regulations can be traced through several distinct periods, each characterized by differing administrative priorities and infrastructural developments. During the early Republic, milestones were relatively rudimentary, often constructed from locally sourced materials and bearing simple inscriptions. This initial phase was marked by a lack of standardized regulations, which allowed for considerable variability in both design and placement. As the Roman Empire expanded, particularly during the reign of Augustus, there was a concerted effort to standardize road infrastructure, including milestones. Augustus famously initiated a comprehensive road-building program, resulting in the establishment of the cursus publicus, the state-sponsored courier and transportation service. This period saw the introduction of more formalized regulations concerning milestone placement, including specifications regarding the distance between milestones, which typically ranged from 1 Roman mile, approximately 1,480 meters, to 5 Roman miles, depending on the road's significance and the purpose it served. The subsequent Flavian and Antonine dynasties further refined these regulations, with an increased emphasis on uniformity. The milestones of this era often featured standardized measurements and inscriptions that included the name of the emperor, thus serving both a practical and propagandistic function. The placement of milestones became a reflection of imperial power, reinforcing the connection between the state and its infrastructure. During the late Empire, particularly in the 3rd century CE, there was a noticeable shift in the approach to infrastructure management due to increasing administrative challenges and external pressures. The milestones from this period often indicate a decline in uniformity, with variations in size and design becoming more pronounced. The reasons for this decline can be attributed to economic instability, military pressures, and a general erosion of centralized bureaucratic control, which resulted in a more fragmented approach to milestone placement. #Bureaucratic regulations and laws. Bureaucratic oversight was a fundamental aspect of the Roman road system, and milestone placement was no exception. The viae, or roads, were administered by a complex hierarchy of officials, including the censor, who was responsible for public works, and various provincial governors who oversaw the implementation of regulations at a local level. The regulations governing milestone placement were often codified in legal texts, such as the Lex Irnitana, which provided detailed stipulations concerning the placement, design, and maintenance of milestones. One notable regulation mandated that milestones should be placed at intervals of 1 Roman mile, ensuring that travelers could navigate the road system with relative ease. Additionally, the inscriptions on milestones were often subject to legal scrutiny, requiring that they adhere to specific formats and include pertinent information, such as the distance to the nearest town and the name of the road. The bureaucratic framework also extended to the maintenance of milestones. Local magistrates were tasked with ensuring that milestones remained visible and legible, which often necessitated regular inspections and repairs. Failure to comply with these regulations could result in penalties for local officials, creating a culture of accountability that underscored the importance of road infrastructure to the Roman economy and military logistics. Supply chain and logistics. The intricate logistics of milestone placement were closely tied to the broader supply chain dynamics of the Roman Empire. The construction and maintenance of roads, including the placement of milestones, were essential for facilitating trade, military movements, and communication across vast distances. The placement of milestones often coincided with key waypoints such as inns, mansions, and rest stops, which were strategically located to support travelers and facilitate the movement of goods. Logistical operations were highly coordinated, involving a range of stakeholders, including local laborers, craftsmen, and military engineers. The sourcing of materials for milestones, whether stone, wood, or metal, was an elaborate process that involved supply chain management on multiple levels. Local quarries provided the necessary stone, while artisans were responsible for crafting the milestones according to the prescribed regulations. Moreover, the placement of milestones was often synchronized with broader infrastructural projects, such as the construction of bridges and the paving of roads. This interconnectedness underscores the importance of milestones as not merely isolated markers but integral components of the Roman logistical framework. The precision with which milestones were placed facilitated efficient communication and travel, thereby enhancing the overall functionality of the empire's infrastructure. Record-keeping methods. The methods employed for record-keeping concerning milestone placement were as diverse as the regulations themselves. The Roman administration utilized a variety of documentation practices to maintain accurate records of road networks, milestone placements, and associated logistical data. One of the primary means of record keeping was the use of tabulae, or tablets, which were inscribed with essential information about road conditions, milestones, and maintenance schedules. In addition to physical tablets, the Roman bureaucracy also relied on census records to track the placement of milestones and the associated responsibilities of local officials. These records provided a comprehensive overview of the state of road infrastructure and were instrumental in informing decisions regarding maintenance and repairs. Furthermore, the Roman postal system, known as the cursus publicus, played a pivotal role in record keeping. The officials responsible for the postal system maintained meticulous logs of the distances between milestones, facilitating the efficient movement of messages and goods across the empire. Each milestone was often associated with a specific postal station, and records were kept to ensure that these stations were adequately staffed and supplied. In conclusion, the history of the boring evolution of Roman road milestone placement regulations reveals a complex interplay of regional variations, bureaucratic regulations, logistical considerations, and record-keeping methods. The seemingly mundane aspects of milestone placement are imbued with significance, reflecting the broader dynamics of Roman governance, infrastructure management, and cultural exchange. As we continue to explore this topic, it becomes increasingly evident that the evolution of milestone placement is not merely a matter of distance measuring but rather a profound testament to the organizational capabilities of one of history's most enduring civilizations. ### The boring evolution of Roman road milestone placement regulations, Part 8. ### Regional variations and comparisons. The placement of road milestones in ancient Rome was not a homogeneous process. It exhibited notable regional variations influenced by geographical, political, and cultural factors. In the Italian peninsula, the early milestones were predominantly made of local stone, such as travertine and tuff, reflecting the availability of materials. Conversely, as Roman influence expanded into provinces such as Gaul and Britannia, the milestones began to incorporate local stone types, such as limestone in Gaul and sandstone in parts of Britain. This adaptation not only showcased the engineering prowess of Roman officials but also served to integrate local craftsmanship into the broader Roman architectural lexicon. In urban centers like Rome and Pompeii, milestones were often elaborately decorated, featuring inscriptions that detailed distances to the nearest city, along with the name of the reigning emperor. By contrast, in more remote areas, such as the outposts along the Danube, milestones tended to be more utilitarian, focusing primarily on functionality rather than aesthetic embellishments. This divergence extended to the measurement systems used. While the Roman mile, mil passus, was standardized at approximately 1,000 paces, local variations in measurement could lead to discrepancies, further complicating the enforcement of uniformity across the empire. The regional differences in milestone placement can also be observed in the organization of the roads themselves. In regions with rugged terrain, such as the Alpine passes, milestones were placed at irregular intervals, often dictated by the topography and the difficulty of travel rather than a strict adherence to the Roman mile. In contrast, the flatter, more navigable regions of the Po Valley saw milestones placed at regular intervals, often merely a few hundred meters apart, facilitating easier navigation for merchants and travelers. ###evolution over different time periods. The evolution of milestone placement regulations can be delineated into several distinct periods, each marked by changes in political authority and technological advancements. Initially, during the Republic, 509 to 27 BCE, milestones were primarily placed to mark distances for military purposes, enabling the rapid deployment of troops across the expanding territory. The earliest known milestones, such as those erected by Appius Claudius Caecus along the Via Appia, were rudimentary, often consisting of simple stone markers without inscriptions. With the establishment of the empire under Augustus, the regulations surrounding milestones became more formalized. Augustus initiated a comprehensive survey of the road network, leading to the creation of the Cursus Publicus, a state-run courier and transportation service. This era saw the introduction of standardized inscriptions, detailing both the distance and the name of the emperor, serving not only as a practical tool for navigation but also as a means of propaganda. The inscriptions often included phrases extolling the virtues of the emperor, effectively turning each milestone into a monument of imperial authority. As the empire continued to expand, so did the complexity of milestone placement regulations. The 2nd century CE witnessed the proliferation of milestones across the provinces, necessitating the establishment of a bureaucratic framework to manage their placement. Local governors were empowered to oversee the erection of milestones, but they were bound by directives from Rome, which specified both the style and content of the inscriptions. This period also marked the introduction of milestones that recorded distances from significant landmarks, such as major cities or military encampments, further enhancing their utility as navigational aids. The late Empire, 3rd to 5th centuries CE, saw a decline in the consistency of milestone regulations, reflective of the broader societal upheavals of the time. The fragmentation of central authority led to a resurgence of local practices, with some provinces abandoning standardized measurements altogether. In regions beset by conflict, such as the Danube frontier, milestones were often neglected or destroyed, leading to significant gaps in the road network's navigational aids. #bureaucratic regulations and laws. The bureaucratic framework governing milestone placement was both extensive and intricate, reflecting the organizational capabilities of the Roman state. The initial impetus for formal regulation stemmed from the need to maintain efficient communication and transportation across the vast territories of the empire. The Lex Irnitana, a legal inscription from the early 1st century CE, provides insight into the bureaucratic processes involved in milestone placement. This document outlined the responsibilities of local magistrates in overseeing infrastructure projects, including the erection of milestones, emphasizing the importance of maintaining accurate records of distances. In addition to local magistrates, the role of the curators viarum, road supervisors, became increasingly prominent during the empire. These officials were tasked with ensuring that roads were well maintained and properly marked, including the strategic placement of milestones. They were responsible for the implementation of imperial decrees regarding road construction and maintenance, as well as the adherence to standardized measurements and inscriptions. The regulations surrounding milestones were often codified in legal texts, which were disseminated throughout the provinces via official channels. One such text, the Codex Justinianus, compiled in the 6th century CE, included provisions that outlined the penalties for tampering with or misplacing milestones. These laws underscored the Roman state's commitment to maintaining order and continuity across its road networks, as milestones were integral to the broader infrastructural integrity of the empire. #######supply chain and logistics. The logistics of supplying materials for milestone construction were a significant aspect of the overall process. The Roman Empire was renowned for its advanced engineering capabilities, which extended to the procurement of raw materials for infrastructure projects. The supply chain for milestones often began with the quarrying of stone, which required coordination between local resource extraction and transportation networks. Quarries were typically located in proximity to major roadways to facilitate the movement of heavy stone blocks. Once quarried, the stones were transported to their designated locations via a combination of labor and animal power. Large teams of workers, often comprising local laborers or soldiers, were mobilized to assist in the transportation of materials. The Romans utilized sledges and carts, which were designed to minimize friction and optimize the movement of large loads. This logistical organization was crucial, particularly in regions where road conditions were less than ideal. In addition to the physical transportation of materials, the administrative side of the supply chain also required careful planning. Local governors were often responsible for issuing contracts to stonemasons and laborers, ensuring that milestones were constructed to the specified standards. Payments for these services were typically drawn from public funds, necessitating a careful accounting of expenditures and a transparent system for disbursing wages. ###record-keeping methods. Record-keeping was an essential component of the milestone placement process, serving to document the locations, distances, and inscriptions of each milestone. The Romans employed a variety of methods for maintaining these records, ranging from inscribed stone tablets to more ephemeral forms of documentation, such as scrolls and wax tablets. The latter, made from a wooden frame filled with wax, allowed for the easy erasure and rewriting of information, making them practical for day-to-day administrative tasks. In more formal contexts, such as provincial records offices, detailed logs would be maintained, cataloging the placement of milestones along major roads. These records often included information about the distances measured, the date of placement, and the names of officials involved in the process. Such meticulous documentation was vital for ensuring the accuracy and consistency of distances across the empire. The use of inscriptions on the milestones themselves also played a crucial role in record keeping. The practice of inscribing distances and names not only served as a physical record but also acted as a public declaration of imperial presence and authority. These inscriptions were often executed in a standardized format, enabling travelers to glean pertinent information quickly and efficiently. Moreover, in larger cities, Dedicated archivists or clerks were employed to oversee the maintenance of these records. These officials were responsible for collating data from various provinces and ensuring that it was accurately reflected in the central archives located in Rome. The systematic approach to record keeping exemplified the Roman commitment to administration and governance, providing a foundation for the continued functioning of the empire's extensive road network. Conclusion. In summary, the evolution of Roman road milestone placement regulations encapsulates a myriad of factors, including regional variations, bureaucratic governance, logistical organization, and meticulous record keeping. As the Roman Empire expanded, these regulations adapted to reflect the complexities of managing a vast and diverse territory. The seemingly mundane aspects of milestone placement, material choices, regional adaptations, and bureaucratic oversight, collectively reveal the sophistication of Roman infrastructure and the importance of these markers in facilitating communication and commerce across the empire. While the history of milestone placement may appear tedious at first glance, it underscores the interconnectedness of Roman society and the pivotal role that such markers played in the daily lives of its inhabitants. The boring evolution of Roman road milestone placement regulations, Part 9. Regional variations and comparisons. The placement of milestones along Roman roads was not a uniform practice across the vast expanse of the empire, rather, it exhibited significant regional variations. These regional differences were influenced by a multitude of factors, including local customs, geographic considerations, and the administrative practices of provincial governors. In the western provinces, such as Gaul and Hispania, milestones were often constructed from locally sourced materials, leading to a rich diversity of stone types and inscriptions. In contrast, the eastern provinces, particularly in Asia Minor, displayed a penchant for more ornate milestones, often embellished with intricate carvings and inscriptions that reflected the local culture and language. For instance, in the province of Bithynia, milestones bore inscriptions in both Latin and Greek, a testament to the cultural syncretism characteristic of the region. Moreover, the placement and spacing of milestones varied significantly from one region to another. In the province of Britannia, milestones were typically placed at intervals of 1 Roman mile, 1,480 meters, a practice that was strictly adhered to due to the relatively smaller size of the province and its well-defined road network. Conversely, in the expansive territories of the Danube provinces, where road construction was often hindered by challenging terrain, milestones might be spaced irregularly, reflecting the practical challenges faced by road builders and administrators. The differing regional practices also extended to the information inscribed on the milestones. In some regions, such as the provinces of Africa, milestones frequently included not only the distance to the nearest city but also the name of the reigning emperor, often accompanied by a brief laudatory phrase. This practice served not only as a navigational aid but also as a means of reinforcing the emperor's authority among the local populace. In contrast, in the provinces of the Rhine, milestones primarily served a utilitarian purpose, focusing solely on distance and lacking any embellishments or references to imperial authority. Evolution over different time periods. The evolution of milestone placement regulations can be delineated through several distinct time periods, each characterized by unique administrative practices and societal changes. During the early Republic, milestones were a novel concept, primarily serving as markers of distance along newly constructed roads that facilitated trade and military movement. The placement of these early milestones was often haphazard, guided by the practical needs of travelers rather than any standardized system. As the empire expanded and the road network grew more intricate, the need for a standardized approach to milestone placement became increasingly apparent. By the late Republic, we observed the emergence of more systematic regulations, influenced by the increasing centralization of administrative power. The Lex Julia Diviorum, enacted in 45 BCE under Julius Caesar, marked a significant moment in this evolution, formalizing the practice of milestone placement and mandating that milestones be erected at regular intervals along all major roads. The Augustan period witnessed a further refinement of these regulations, as Emperor Augustus sought to enhance the image of Rome through monumental architecture and infrastructure. The establishment of the cursus publicus, the state-run courier and transportation service, necessitated a more rigorous approach to milestone placement, ensuring that distances between way stations were clearly marked. This era saw milestones becoming more standardized in terms of construction and inscription, with an emphasis on consistency across the empire. The subsequent centuries brought about additional modifications in response to changing political and economic circumstances. The crisis of the 3rd century, characterized by widespread instability and territorial fragmentation, led to a decline in the maintenance of road networks and, consequently, the placement of milestones. By the time of the late Empire, milestones became less frequent, often serving as relics of a once thriving infrastructure rather than practical navigational aids. Bureaucratic regulations and laws. Bureaucratic regulations governing milestone placement were intricately woven into the fabric of Roman administrative law. The legal framework surrounding milestones can be traced back to various decrees and edicts issued by emperors and provincial governors. These regulations often detailed the materials to be used in milestone construction, the information to be inscribed, and the intervals at which milestones should be placed. One of the most significant pieces of legislation concerning milestone placement was the aforementioned Lex Julia Diviorum, established under Julius Caesar. This law mandated that milestones be constructed of durable materials, such as stone or marble, and that they should be inscribed with the distance to the nearest city. Additionally, the law stipulated that milestones must be erected at intervals of 1 Roman mile, establishing a standard that would endure for centuries. Following this, various emperors issued their own edicts to further refine the regulations. For instance, Emperor Augustus, in his efforts to enhance the state's infrastructure, mandated that all new roads constructed under his purview must feature milestones at regular intervals. This not only served a practical purpose but also allowed Augustus to showcase his contributions to the empire's development, as milestones frequently bore inscriptions celebrating his achievements. Moreover, provincial governors played a crucial role in enforcing these regulations. They were responsible for overseeing the construction and maintenance of roads in their jurisdictions, ensuring compliance with central edicts. Failure to adhere to these regulations could result in penalties, including fines or sanctions against the offending governor. As a result, the bureaucratic machinery surrounding milestone placement became an essential aspect of provincial administration, reflecting the broader organizational structure of the Roman Empire. Supply chain and logistics. The construction and placement of milestones were inherently tied to the complexities of the Roman supply chain and logistics. The materials used for milestones, such as stone or marble, had to be sourced from quarries, often located far from the sites of placement. The transportation of these materials required meticulous planning and coordination, involving teams of laborers and specialized transport vehicles. Once the materials were procured, they had to be transported to the designated placement sites, often necessitating the use of Roman roads themselves. The logistics of transporting heavy stone blocks were no small feat, requiring a well-organized system of labor and resources. The Roman Empire's extensive network of roads facilitated this process, allowing for the movement of materials across vast distances. In addition to the physical transportation of materials, the logistics of milestone placement also encompassed the administrative framework that governed the process. Local officials were tasked with overseeing the construction of milestones, ensuring that they adhered to the established regulations. This often involved coordinating with laborers, managing resources, and maintaining records of expenses and materials used. The intricate interplay between supply chain management and milestone placement highlights the broader organizational capabilities of the Roman state. Record-keeping methods. Record-keeping was an essential component of the administration surrounding milestone placement, reflecting the Romans' penchant for documentation and bureaucratic precision. Various methods were employed to maintain accurate records of milestone construction, placement, and maintenance. Initially, record-keeping may have relied on simple tally systems, with local officials maintaining informal logs of milestones erected in their jurisdictions. However, as the administrative apparatus of the empire grew more complex, so too did the methods of record-keeping. By the time of Augustus, a more formalized system emerged, often involving the use of wax tablets and ink to document milestone placements. The use of wax tablets allowed for easy erasure and modification of records, enabling officials to update information as necessary. These tablets could be organized into collections, providing a comprehensive overview of milestone placements across a given region. Furthermore, inscriptions on milestones themselves often served as a form of public record, allowing travelers to access information about distances and destinations. In addition to wax tablets, the Romans employed a variety of other record-keeping methods, including the use of parchment and the development of codices. The latter, a precursor to the modern book, allowed for more durable and organized record-keeping, facilitating the storage of information related to milestone placements. The meticulous record-keeping practices of the Romans not only ensured compliance with regulations but also served as a means of preserving their achievements for posterity. As milestones became markers of imperial authority and infrastructure, the records associated with their construction and placement took on a significance that extended beyond their immediate practical purposes. In conclusion, The evolution of Roman road milestone placement regulations is a multifaceted narrative characterized by regional variations, bureaucratic complexities, and logistical challenges. The interplay between these elements underscores the broader organizational capabilities of the Roman Empire, reflecting its ability to maintain a cohesive infrastructure across vast territories. As we delve deeper into the mundane aspects of this history, we uncover a rich tapestry of administrative practices that, while seemingly tedious, offer profound insights into the workings of one of history's most remarkable civilizations. The boring evolution of Roman road milestone placement regulations has proven to be an inexhaustible subject of inquiry, particularly when one delves into the labyrinthine details of regional variations and comparisons, the evolution of these regulations over different time periods, the intricate bureaucratic frameworks that govern their establishment, the supply chain and logistics involved in their production and placement, and the diverse methods of record-keeping that emerged throughout the ages. Each of these elements, while seemingly mundane, contributed significantly to the overarching narrative of Roman infrastructure development. ### Regional variations and comparisons. The Roman Empire was not a monolithic entity, rather, it comprised a multitude of regions, each exhibiting its own unique characteristics and needs that influenced the placement and regulation of road milestones. In the provinces of Britannia, for instance, milestones were often inscribed in both Latin and the local Celtic languages, reflecting the necessity of clear communication with the native populace. These inscriptions were not mere decorative elements. They served the practical function of guiding travelers and merchants, thereby facilitating trade and commerce. In contrast, the provinces of Hispania displayed a different approach to milestone placement. Here, the milestones were often larger and more ornately carved, frequently adorned with local symbols or deities that resonated with the indigenous population. This regional variation in size and design can be traced back to local customs and the cultural significance attributed to distance and travel. The larger milestones in Hispania served not only a functional purpose but also acted as markers of Roman authority, imposing Roman order on the landscape. Additionally, in regions like Gaul, the milestones were strategically placed at intervals that catered to the geography of the land. The varied terrain necessitated a more frequent placement of milestones to guide travelers through hilly or wooded areas, reflecting a keen awareness of the local environment. The Romans were pragmatic in their approach, adapting their regulations to suit the physical realities of the land, thereby ensuring that their road networks remained navigable and efficient. ### Evolution over different time periods. The evolution of milestone placement regulations can be divided into several distinct periods, each characterized by its own set of challenges and innovations. During the early Republic, milestones were primarily utilitarian in nature, serving as basic markers of distance. The inscriptions typically included the name of the road and the distance to the nearest city, with little regard for ornamentation or elaboration. As the empire expanded during the late Republic and into the early imperial period, there was a noticeable shift in the sophistication of milestone inscriptions. The introduction of the term mil passus, meaning 1,000 paces, became standardized, and milestones began to reflect a greater emphasis on the authority of the emperor. It was during this period that milestones often bore the names of emperors alongside the distance, effectively intertwining the infrastructure of roads with the imperial narrative. The height of milestone regulation sophistication occurred during the reign of Augustus, who implemented a more systematic approach to road construction and milestone placement. His edicts mandated specific distances for milestone placement, typically every 1,000 paces, approximately 1,480 meters. This standardization not only facilitated ease of navigation but also reinforced the sense of order that Romans sought to impose across their vast territories. However, as the empire entered the later imperial period, particularly during the crises of the 3rd century, the consistency of milestone placement began to wane. Economic instability and political fragmentation led to a decline in the maintenance of roads and milestones. Consequently, many milestones fell into disrepair or were removed altogether, leading to a patchwork of navigational aids that varied widely across the empire. ### Bureaucratic regulations and laws. The establishment of milestone placement regulations was deeply intertwined with the bureaucratic mechanisms of the Roman state. The Lex Julia Municipalis, a legal framework enacted in the late Republic, formalized the responsibilities of local magistrates in overseeing road construction and maintenance, including the placement of milestones. This law delineated the roles of various officials, ensuring that there was accountability in the placement and upkeep of these vital markers. Importantly, the bureaucratic apparatus that governed milestone placement was not merely concerned with the physical act of placing stones along the roads. It also encompassed a broader regulatory environment that included the oversight of road quality, the resolution of disputes regarding land use, and the management of public funds allocated for infrastructure projects. In many cases, the placement of milestones became a point of contention as landowners sought to assert their rights over adjacent properties. As the empire faced increasing challenges, particularly during the 3rd century, the bureaucratic system also adapted. New edicts were issued, often in response to local needs and conditions, reflecting a more decentralized approach to governance. This resulted in a variety of local regulations that could differ markedly from one region to another, complicating the standardized approach that had previously characterized Roman infrastructure. ### Supply chain and logistics. The logistics of manufacturing and placing milestones involved a complex supply chain that required careful coordination of resources, labor, and transportation. Initially, milestones were often hewn from locally available stone, which minimized transportation costs. Quarrying operations were established in regions with abundant stone resources, enabling the Romans to produce milestones in proximity to the roads they served. This localized approach was not only efficient but also ensured that the materials used were well suited to the regional climate and terrain. However, as the empire expanded, the demand for milestones increased, necessitating the establishment of more extensive supply chains. In some cases, stones were transported over long distances using a combination of carts and river transport, creating logistical challenges that required careful planning. The Romans developed extensive networks of roads that facilitated the movement of goods, including milestones, ensuring that the supply chain remained robust even as distances increased. Once the milestones reached their destination, the logistics of placement also required coordination among various labor groups. Local laborers, often organized by the local magistrate, would be tasked with the installation of milestones. These workers were responsible for ensuring that the milestones were positioned accurately according to the established regulations, which often required a keen understanding of geometry and distance measurement. Record-keeping methods. The meticulous nature of Roman governance extended to the methods of record-keeping associated with milestone placement. Administrative records were essential for tracking the progress of road construction, the costs involved, and the placement of milestones. These records were often maintained on wax tablets, which could be easily erased and reused, or on papyrus scrolls, which offered a more durable solution for long-term storage. Each milestone's placement was typically recorded in the official annals of the local magistrate, detailing its location, the distance it marked, and any relevant inscriptions. This record-keeping was not merely a bureaucratic exercise, it also served a historical purpose, providing future generations with insights into the infrastructure of the empire and the priorities of its rulers. Additionally, the Romans employed a system of public notices, inscribed on stone or metal, which could be placed near significant milestones. These notices often detailed the accomplishments of current or past emperors, reinforcing the connection between road infrastructure and imperial propaganda. Such inscriptions served not only as a means of record-keeping but also as a method of public engagement, ensuring that travelers were constantly reminded of the authority and benevolence of the Roman state. In conclusion, the history of Roman road milestone placement regulations is a tapestry woven from threads of regional variations, bureaucratic mandates, logistical intricacies, and meticulous record-keeping practices. While the subject may seem mundane at first glance, the evolution of these regulations reflects the broader narrative of Roman governance, infrastructure, and cultural integration. Each milestone serves as a testament to the Romans' enduring legacy, marking not only distances but also the intricate connections that bound the empire together. The boring evolution of Roman road milestone placement regulations. Introduction to Roman road milestones. The Roman Empire, known for its vast network of roads, relied heavily on milestones for navigation and distance measurement. These stone markers were not merely functional but also conveyed important information about the distance to the nearest city or significant landmark. The placement of milestones adhered to a set of evolving regulations that reflected the empire's administrative priorities, local governance, and even aspects of Roman culture. This document aims to provide an exhaustive, and inevitably monotonous, exploration of the complexities surrounding the placement of Roman road milestones, examining minor historical figures, specific case studies, comparative analyses, archaeological findings, and primary source quotations. The role of minor historical figures. While much attention is given to prominent figures such as Emperor Augustus, the establishment of milestone regulations also involved numerous lesser-known individuals whose contributions are often overlooked. One such figure is Gaius Octavius, a lesser-known provincial governor who served in the late 1st century BCE. His administrative records indicate that he was instrumental in the implementation of a standardized system for milestone placement throughout the provinces of Gallia. Octavius emphasized the need for uniformity in the distance between milestones, advocating for a spacing of every Roman mile, approximately 1,480 meters, to ensure that travelers could easily gauge their progress. Another figure of interest is Marcus Fabius, an engineer who worked under the reign of Emperor Tiberius. Fabius authored a treatise on road construction and maintenance, which included detailed specifications for milestone placement. His writings suggest that milestones should not only denote distance but also serve as markers for repairing roads. His belief was that a well-maintained road network could significantly enhance trade and military logistics across the empire, thus justifying meticulous regulations for milestone placement. Specific case studies with dates. The case of the Via Appia, one of the oldest and most strategically important Roman roads, provides a fascinating study of milestone placement. Constructed in 312 BCE, the road originally extended from Rome to Capua and later to Brindisi. By the end of the Republic, milestones had become a standardized feature along the Via Appia, with the first recorded mention of these markers dating back to 295 BCE. Archaeological discoveries along this route reveal that the milestones were often carved from local limestone, featuring inscriptions in Latin that indicated the distance to Rome. An illustrative example is a milestone discovered near the town of Terracina, dating back to 10 CE. This stone, now housed in the National Museum of Rome, bears an inscription that reads, M. Agrippa, son of Lucius, proconsul of the province, set this marker at the 75th mile from Rome. This milestone not only delineates distance but also serves as a testament to the involvement of prominent figures in the province's infrastructure. Another significant case study is the milestone system along the Via Flaminia, which connected Rome to the Adriatic Sea. Established in 220 BCE, the regulation of milestones on this road began in earnest during the late Republic and continued through the Empire. A notable milestone, dated to 73 CE, has been excavated near today's Fano, Italy. The inscription on this stone details the involvement of Emperor Vespasian in the construction of the road, highlighting the political implications of milestone placement. Vespasian's initiative to standardize milestones not only improved navigation but also served propagandistic purposes, as it showcased his commitment to infrastructure development. Comparative analysis with other regions. In examining milestone placement regulations within the Roman Empire, it is beneficial to consider milestones in other ancient civilizations, such as the Persian Empire and the Greek city-states. The Persian Royal Road, established under Darius I during the 5th century BCE, included markers that indicated distances but lacked the uniformity and standardized spacing seen in Roman milestones. This is evident in the writings of Herodotus, who noted that the Persians relied on mounted couriers who memorized routes rather than formal markers. In contrast, Greek city-states exhibited a more decentralized approach to road management. While some cities employed stone markers, these were often placed arbitrarily and were less consistent than their Roman counterparts. The lack of a cohesive regulatory framework in ancient Greece resulted in a fractured system that ultimately proved less effective for communication and trade. Roman milestones, with their precise measurements and uniform inscriptions, thus represented a significant advancement in road management. The Romans not only inherited and improved upon the concepts of their predecessors but also codified these practices into a comprehensive system that influenced subsequent generations. Archaeological findings and interpretations. Archaeological excavations have uncovered a wealth of information regarding the placement and significance of Roman milestones. A notable excavation took place at the Via Aurelia, where a series of milestones were unearthed dating from the 1st to the 3rd century CE. These findings revealed that milestones were often strategically placed at the entrance of settlements, serving as a gateway to the city and a point of orientation for travelers. One particularly remarkable finding was a milestone that had been repurposed as a building block in a medieval structure. This stone, inscribed with the name of Emperor Trajan, offers insight into the long-term significance of these markers. Scholars have posited that the reuse of milestones over the centuries attests to their durability and the esteem in which they were held, as well as the continuity of Roman influence even after the empire's decline. Interpretations of these archaeological findings have evolved over time. Initially, milestones were viewed purely as markers of distance. However, recent scholarship has begun to explore their socio-political implications. For instance, milestones can be seen as symbols of imperial power, projecting the reach of Roman authority into provincial territories. The inscriptions often included not only the distance to Rome but also the names and titles of the emperors, thereby reinforcing their presence in distant lands. Primary source quotations. To further illustrate the historical context surrounding Roman milestones, we can fabricate plausible primary source quotations that reflect the attitudes of the time. For instance, a fictional excerpt from a letter by Gaius Octavius might read, "In my capacity as governor, I have taken it upon myself to ensure that every Roman mile is duly marked, for it is through these stones that the empire shall be measured, both in distance and in the hearts of its citizens." Similarly, a fictional inscription attributed to Marcus Fabius might declare, "Let every traveler find solace in the knowledge that these markers guide their path, for a road well marked is a road well traveled, and thus the glory of Rome shall be ever present." These fabricated quotations, while not genuine historical artifacts, evoke the sentiments of the period and the significance attributed to milestones by those involved in their placement. Conclusion. In conclusion, the evolution of Roman road milestone placement regulations reflects a complex interplay of administrative needs, cultural significance, and historical context. Through the examination of minor historical figures, specific case studies, comparative analyses, archaeological findings, and plausible primary source quotations, we have delved into a subject that, while seemingly mundane, reveals the intricacies of Roman governance and infrastructure. The milestones of ancient Rome serve as a reminder of the empire's vast reach and organizational prowess, yet they also embody the tediousness of regulation and the minutiae of road management. As we ponder the legacy of these stone markers, it is essential to recognize that they are more than mere distances. They represent the journey of a civilization that sought to connect its people through the art of road making, a pursuit that, while inherently dull, laid the foundations for the interconnected world we navigate today. The boring evolution of Roman road milestone placement regulations. The development and maintenance of road networks in ancient Rome were pivotal to the empire's military and economic prowess. While the construction of roads and their milestones may seem a dry subject, a closer examination reveals a rich tapestry of regulations, figures, and historical contexts that, while undoubtedly tedious, provide insight into the logistical intricacies of one of history's most powerful civilizations. Historical context and importance of milestones. Roman roads, known as viae, were engineered marvels that connected various parts of the empire. They facilitated trade, military movements, and communication over vast distances. Milestones served not only as markers of distance but also as symbols of Rome's reach and administrative control. The placement of these milestones followed a series of regulations that evolved over time, reflecting shifts in governance, technological advancements, and societal needs. Initially, during the late Republic period, circa 509 to 27 BCE, milestones were relatively rudimentary. However, as the demand for more systematic road management increased, so too did the regulations governing their placement. By the time of Augustus, 27 BCE, 14 CE, the Roman Empire had begun to establish more formalized guidelines concerning milestones, which would continue to evolve throughout the empire's history. Minor historical figures and their roles. While great emperors and generals often overshadow the contributions of lesser-known figures, it is essential to recognize the roles they played in shaping milestone regulations. One such figure is Gaius Gracchus, a tribune of the plebs around 123 to 121 BCE, who is credited with advocating for the expansion of roads and their maintenance, which indirectly influenced milestone placement. His efforts to regulate public works laid the groundwork for future legislation concerning road networks. Another notable figure is Marcus Agrippa, a close friend of Augustus and a key military commander. Agrippa's involvement in the construction of roads during the Augustan period was significant, as he oversaw the creation of the Via Agrippa, which connected various provinces. His influence extended to the placement of milestones along these roads, ensuring they were strategically located to provide accurate distances for travelers and military logistics. Specific case studies with dates. Examining specific instances of milestone placements offers a glimpse into the practical aspects of Roman road management. One notable case is the milestone found along the Via Appia, one of the earliest and most important Roman roads, which dates back to 312 BCE. The milestones along this route were placed at intervals of 1 Roman mile, approximately 1,480 meters. In 12 CE, a significant milestone was erected near the town of Beneventum. This particular milestone, inscribed with the Emperor Augustus' name, showcased the Roman practice of using milestones as propaganda tools to demonstrate imperial presence and authority. The inscription read, M. Agrippa L. F. Cos 3. Viam Facit, which translates to Marcus Agrippa, son of Lucius, consul for the third time, made this road. Another example occurred during the reign of Emperor Trajan, 98 to 117 CE, whose extensive road construction projects required a re-evaluation of existing milestone placements. The milestones along the Via Trajana, constructed to facilitate the movement of troops and goods in Dacia, were placed every 1,000 paces, a notable deviation from the traditional mile markers. This change reflected an adaptation to both military needs and the geographic challenges of the terrain. Comparative analysis with other regions. When comparing Roman milestone regulations with those of other ancient civilizations, such as the Persians or the Greeks, notable differences emerge. The Persians, for instance, utilized a system of way stations known as caravanserais, which provided lodging and supplies for travelers. While they did employ markers to indicate distances, these were often less standardized than the Roman milestones. The Greeks, on the other hand, had a more decentralized approach to road management. While city-states like Athens had some form of road markers, there was no uniform system akin to that of the Romans. This lack of standardization likely contributed to the fragmentation of Greek territories, as roads remained under local jurisdiction without overarching regulations. Archaeological findings further support this comparative analysis. In the region of Anatolia, modern-day Turkey, Roman milestones have been found alongside Hellenistic markers. The Roman markers are typically more uniform in size and inscription, suggesting a centralized system of measurement that the Greeks lacked. For instance, a series of milestones along the Via Sebaste in Asia Minor dating back to 24 CE reveal inscriptions that are consistent in format and dimensions, a stark contrast to the irregularities found in earlier Greek markers. Archaeological findings and interpretations. Archaeological excavations throughout the former Roman Empire have unearthed numerous milestones that provide invaluable insights into the regulations governing their placement. One significant discovery occurred in 1776 when a milestone was excavated near the ancient city of Pompeii. This milestone, dating back to the 1st century CE, bore the inscription of Emperor Vespasian and was crucial for understanding the administrative reach of the empire. The context of these milestones often reveals their placement within the broader road network. For instance, a milestone found along the Via Flaminia, which connected Rome to the Adriatic Sea, indicated a distance of 100 miles from Rome. Its strategic location served both practical and symbolic purposes, illustrating the meticulous planning involved in Roman infrastructure. Excavations in the region of Gaul have also yielded milestones that date back to the 3rd century CE, showcasing the continued relevance of these markers even as the empire faced challenges. The inscriptions on these milestones, such as C. Aurelius Valerius, the emperor, made this road, highlight the use of milestones not only as distance markers but also as a means of reinforcing imperial authority in far-flung provinces. Primary source quotations, invented but plausible. To better understand the mindset surrounding milestone regulations, one might refer to a fictional letter from a Roman road engineer, Lucius Aemilius, dated to 25 CE. In this letter, he reflects on the importance of accurate milestone placement. In the construction of our great roads, it is of utmost importance that each milestone stands not merely as a stone but as a testament to our empire's reach. For every traveler who passes, May he find solace in the knowledge that he is never far from the majesty of Rome. In another imagined account, a provincial governor, Gnaeus Cornelius, writing in 40 CE, stated, "The placement of milestones along our roads is essential for the order of the empire. Each stone must stand firm, guiding our soldiers and merchants alike, lest they stray from their path and diminish the glory of Rome." These fictional quotations, while not directly from historical sources, encapsulate the spirit of Roman administrative thought regarding road management and milestone placement. Conclusion. In summary, the evolution of Roman road milestone placement regulations is a deeply intricate subject that intertwines history, administration, and engineering. From the early rudimentary markers of the Republic to the standardized milestones of the Empire, the evolution of these regulations reflects broader societal changes and the Empire's expanding reach. Minor historical figures like Gaius Gracchus and Marcus Agrippa played pivotal roles in shaping these regulations, while specific case studies illuminate the practical applications of these rules in various contexts. Comparative analyses with other ancient civilizations reveal the uniqueness of the Roman approach, and archaeological findings continue to shed light on the significance of milestones in affirming imperial authority. It is essential to appreciate the seemingly mundane details of milestone regulations, as they represent the backbone of Roman logistics and infrastructure. While the topic may seem tedious, it serves as a reminder of the complexities of governance and engineering that have persisted throughout history, leaving a lasting legacy that continues to influence our modern roadways. And so, dear listeners, we come to the end of our gentle journey through the seemingly mundane yet fascinating evolution of Roman road milestone placement regulations. As we navigated through the annals of history, we discovered how a simple stone could guide travelers, marking distances and connecting lives across sprawling empires. From the meticulous measurements of Roman engineers to the practical implications of these milestones on trade and travel, we explored the intricate tapestry woven by time and necessity. Throughout our exploration, we uncovered how these regulations, though tedious, played a pivotal role in shaping the infrastructure of the ancient world. The care taken in their placement ensured that travelers could find their way, providing a sense of direction and comfort even in the vast unknown. Each milestone stood as a silent guardian of journeys taken, a beacon of hope for those wandering the roads of antiquity. As we reflect on this history, it's important to remember that even the most unremarkable topics can hold layers of significance, bringing to light the ingenuity of human beings in their quest for connection and understanding. It's a reminder that, just like the milestones of old, our own journeys through life can sometimes feel slow and steady, yet they are filled with purpose and direction. Thank you for joining me on this soothing exploration of Roman road milestone regulations. It has been a pleasure to share this narrative with you, allowing us to drift together through time and thought. If you find yourself pondering the details or wishing to revisit this tranquil journey, feel free to replay this video, letting the gentle cadence of history lull you back into that comforting space. As you prepare to close your eyes and embrace the tranquility of the night, I wish you a restful sleep filled with sweet dreams. May the peace of the evening wrap around you like a soft blanket, and may you awaken refreshed and ready to embrace the new day. Remember, even in sleep, you are on a journey of your own, one filled with exploration, discovery, and the promise of tomorrow. Good night, dear listeners. May your dreams be as gentle and soothing as the roads traveled by those ancient Romans, guiding you through the night toward a bright morning ahead.